So we're talking about sustainability, whether that means agriculture, energy. Energy is in fact the focus of our next panel. We're talking about digitalization for a sustainable tomorrow and what role energy companies can play. I think we all know that in this current day and age, the energy companies have a lot to say. I want to bring up our next moderator, Kim Klebert from Bitkom. Welcome.
Yeah, hello and a warm welcome from my side. I'm Kimberly, I'm with Bitkom. Thanks Sarah for the introduction, and I'll be your moderator for the next two panels where we talk about digitization and sustainability, how that works together, and what really interesting use cases we have there for you. And for that, it's a pleasure to welcome my panel today, and it would be, I see we have some technical issues with the microphone, so I'll just look over to my technical support team over there. But first of all, I'd like to start with a short introduction of who's with us today. And for that, I'd like to ask our panelists to give a brief 2 to 3 minute introduction of who are you, what do you do, and what's your perspective on digitization and sustainability. And I would say we do ladies first. So Rena Kleine, it's a pleasure. You're the co-founder of ecotrek. Tell us more about what you do and what's your mission today.
Thanks, Kim, for the little introduction. Welcome, everyone. My name is Rena Kleine. I'm one of the co-founders of ecotrek, a sustainable data mining startup that sells sustainability data and integrates those data into B2B decision-making. We are currently having a client base of 40 clients and are overlooking over 2 million suppliers and companies over our system. And I'm here today to give you a little insight on how green tech startups can shape a sustainable tomorrow.
Thank you very much. And next to me is Dr. Christian Bogatu. He's an investment advisor at the German Federal Agency for Disruptive Innovation. So maybe also from your side, who are you and what's your investment perspective on sustainability and digitization?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm Christian Bogatu. I'm an entrepreneur by heart. I started 5 companies in the past and did a long 1 year, let's say, sabbatical or a pause, and then thought, what can I do next? And the answer was very simple for me because I learned about Sprint, which is the Federal Agency for Disruptive Innovation, a state agency with a €1 billion budget. And maybe I can use the chance to ask you, who has heard of Sprint before?
It's some of you. It will be all of you after this panel.
Another question, who has heard of DARPA in the United States of America? Okay, many more. Now, today you learn about Sprint, and hopefully we can do great things together and move the world forward with the support that we can give, on one hand with the €1 billion budget, but on the other hand with the connections we have in the industry, in science, politics, etc.
Thanks very much, Christian. I'm sure everyone will know about Sprint after this panel and what you do, and you'll stick around for questions.
Absolutely.
And last on stage is Matthias Hartman. He's the CEO of Techem Energy Services. He joined us quite spontaneously, so maybe also from your side, thank you very much for being here. A short introduction of who you are, what you do with your company, and how sustainability comes into the energy sector.
Yes, hello. Matthias Hartman, my name. I'm heading Techem. Techem is an energy services provider to the real estate industry. We serve the landlords basically with a core product stemming from 70 years ago, which is heat cost allocation. In the meantime, we are in a full digitization of that business. We have like 60 million digital devices out there that send their data through the cloud to us. And we are working hard to digitize the whole user experience so that tenants do not need to wait for their heat cost allocation until May or June, but they can have it by a click in a minute. And that's the product we are currently rolling out step by step. Besides that, we take care of the decarbonization of the building stock, which is the main topic that drives us. We have an energy contracting business where we operate like close to 2,500 boiler rooms And we are digitizing that as well with a monitoring solution that gets fully connected. So what we are currently doing is we do not only measure heat and warm water, we measure in the meantime electricity, we connect gas to the smart meter gateway rollout, we do e-charging solutions to the real estate industry. So our footprint gets much broader than what many of you might know, having been a tenant where suddenly one day you find a little sign in on your door that says Techem is coming to read your data. These days are digitally over as we are moving fully to a digital chain.
Great, thank you very much. And then my first question goes to you. You just briefly touched on how digital technology can make a change in the building sector. So maybe do you have some concrete example of products and of digital solutions you're working on to help facilitate the climate change in the building sector?
Look, this is a perfect storm for the real estate industry. That industry has been growing nicely, solidly over the past 10, 20 years. By 2045, the building stock has to be climate neutral. And that is a huge task because the building stock in this country is responsible for 40% of carbon emissions. So this is the biggest task. Compare that to airline flying, which we all do not like anymore. This is 2%, okay? So we are talking about a big chunk. And we have to do this by putting a lot of factors together. One factor is the digitalization of the building stock, because without data, we do not know how to optimize. Secondly, we need to integrate the users, the tenants. People need to know how they react. We are in the middle of a perfect storm of the gas crisis. Prices are shooting up. An average tenant in Germany this year will have to pay another 500 to 600 euro for the past year on the energy consumption. For next year, we predict this will be around 1,800 to 2,000 euro. This is a big problem, so we need to reduce energy by putting more efficient systems in place, and we are part of that chain to do it.
Thanks a lot.
Maybe to add on this, if you reduce the energy as a tenant, you don't need to sacrifice any comfort. Right? With my last company, Fresh Energy, we showed that but just by visualizing your own power consumption, our customers on average were reducing their power consumption by 10% because the app tells them you should switch off your printer because it consumes 15 euro 2 years ago, which will be 30 euro by today. And if you add those things, you can really live your life as before, but reduce your power consumption significantly. And in the commercial space, it's even more drastic. So there's companies like Double, for example, that can reduce energy consumption by 40% in a commercial building with a simple software update. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruits in the building sector.
So maybe from your perspective as someone who sees a lot of business models and who sees a lot of companies starting, what do you say, what's the status quo really in the use of digital technology when it comes to startups, when it comes to companies? Where are we compared to other countries, compared maybe to other industries?
I think there's a big leap, obviously, over the last 1 year, maybe 1 or 2 years, or even half a year. And unfortunately accelerated much more from the war from Russia than from digitization, actually, when it comes to sustainability. But I also would say we should not forget about the cost aspect, as we all are infected by inflation, and we should not forget about the security of the supply chains. So it's not just sustainability, but it's actually a triangle that digital technology needs to tackle. So making sure things are sustainable, cost affordable, and secured, because without gas, you cannot meter anything, right?
Yeah, so I assume, as you said, kind of the war in the Ukraine has been a catalyst for thinking about the digital changes that have to happen. So do you see, what are the biggest challenges, what are the biggest hurdles you see when it comes to thinking about this process of bringing a digital component to achieve the sustainability goals of a company?
I think the challenge is in the mindset of people, because the technology has been there much longer. You could have done improvement of your building management system to reduce consumption by 40%. You could have done that 4 or 5 years ago. But people wouldn't do it because they've always been doing what they have always been doing. And that, I think, is the biggest problem, especially in Europe. It's not so much the cost of implementing solutions, it's more the mindset, I think, and that has to change. And
to add, maybe besides the mindset, I also want to highlight that it needs to be super simple, right? So that people who are not sustainability experts are able to easily understand and then act and decide towards sustainability.
So maybe Rena, Christian just mentioned the mindset, and you are a co-founder of a company. So maybe give us an insight, give the audience an insight of what was your journey, your mindset that was needed to be a CEO, to be a co-founder of this company, and in what you're doing.
For sure. So I get this asked all the time, and I can only speak for myself, but I feel like in my generation, it's kind of a no-brainer. So I've never really had this moment where I said, okay, I need to change something in the world. It's kind of probably in kindergarten it came to me. So it was obviously clear for me that if I ever want to start my own company, then it needs to be in the green tech space, and it needs to solve and make a big impact. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe, Matthias, we just briefly touched upon the topic of corporate social responsibility, and that is a thing that is also in relevance changing with younger people entering the labor market. So maybe from your CEO's perspective of what has changed in the relevance of CSR in companies in general, and what do you as Techem do in this area?
I think indeed we have to face a completely new way on how we as companies present ourselves, and that we can truly define a purpose that is not appealing only to our clients, but also to our current and future workforce. So the way we tried to approach it at Techem was, I well remember, 2 years ago, I spent that summer with 300 of my team to define what is the purpose of our company, what is the purpose of Techem. Because it's pretty hard to sell to young digital talent that, you are collecting data from heat cost allocators in order to do a good kind of billing afterwards. No, our purpose, we defined our purpose that we jointly digitize the energy transition in the building stock. So a much broader sense where we commit ourselves, not only with our own operation that we decarbonize, but also that we help our clients to decarbonize. So this is a purpose-driven approach. And for us, it means as well that you have to prove it by data. So last year, we concluded our first ESG report, sustainability report, and we did it for the German home market only. This year in August, we launched our second one, which is covering now all the 20 countries that we operate in. And of course, this is not only an energy thing, this is not only an E report, this is an S and a G report. And of course, if we benchmark ourselves and we are honest to each other, we will all recognize where we have to improve. How do we deal with inclusion? How do we deal with female talent in the management team? I can tell you that my international companies are 35% female executive management in place. Germany, I took over with 16%. I'm now up to 22%. And I'm now very happy to have my first female managing director for the German organization as well. What gets measured gets done. And we are a measurement business. We are measuring energy for our clients. And so for us, it is extremely important that we understand what is the path of the company and that we make it measurable and that we make it transparent. And I think this is part of your business idea as well, right?
Yes. Right, yeah, so Rena, maybe tell us more about what you do, because what you said is you're the Schufa for sustainability, and I really love that, because I guess Germans really can relate to that, because we all know the Schufa. So maybe walk us through what was the idea behind it, and what do you measure, how do you measure it, and what's the outcome really?
Absolutely. So we saw the massive problem that currently those data gets measured inside out. So what you usually do is you collect the data and then report on it and put that in your communication. So we thought, how can we really disrupt it? And we came up with sustainability data mining, which in essence is doing outside-in screenings. I'll show you that specific use case in 5 minutes. But this way, we can get external assessment of every single one of your business partners and can really tell you where they're at in their sustainability journey, which social, environmental, but also governance indicators they are working on and they have committed themselves to.
So you do you want to add in?
I love what you're doing, actually, and I think you said it right. What's measured can get done. If you don't measure it, you don't know it. Same thing if you don't see your power consumption or your heat consumption, you forget about it. And if you see the things, then you will act on something. So maybe that's another big hurdle besides the mindset, or that's something how you can overcome this hurdle by just giving real visibility and facts. So great what you're doing.
And I guess real visibility is a good keyword because Rena, what you did is you brought a case study with us. So I'm looking at the technical team to start the video for you, and then you'll comment on what we see.
Absolutely. This is one use case, and there are many solutions out there who can impact business decisions. What we are doing at ecotrek is we are doing auto-collection of all company-related risk, performance, and transparency sustainability data points, and collect that over a span of multiple thousands of suppliers or clients. This is an aspect of our database. So what you can see here, if you look closely, here you find that we collect the sustainability reports, the ISO certificates, human rights policy, ISO 9001, and all kinds of different sustainability indicators. We are currently overseeing 200 different sustainability indicators. Our clients, for example, Gerolsteiner and Ströer, the media company, they really value that they can not only get those assessments, but they can also directly access the reports. In this case, a certificate. In another case, could be your sustainability report. And we make it as easy as possible and bring that into sourcing, procurement decisions, and obviously, of course, strategy and operations in management teams. This is like how you could imagine the future of outside-in screenings, to give you a little overview.
Great, yeah, thanks a lot for bringing this case study. Just one follow-up question, because measuring is maybe only the first step. So what's your vision on holding companies accountable for that? What's your vision of bringing the insights you get from this data actually to create change within the companies you're monitoring?
What we currently see is we could give you an external assessment of our system, right? So in this way, you can really see what do others see of your company. This helps you to decide better in the future, strategy-wise. And you can also look at your competitors, for example, and get your whole supplier base inside. This helps to really reach your sustainability targets in a way of renewable energy with suppliers, for example. This is something we can totally screen and bring directly on your table to decide on where you want to go.
Look, I mean, we just saw it yesterday. The EU decided yesterday on the reporting needs also for smaller companies. Unless we all try to automate and data capture that process, we are creating the next kind of big animal of reporting next to the annual report that is a burden on many smaller companies anyway. So what we said what we would do is, of course, having to do our ESG reporting right and being transparent about it and getting all the certifications, the external assessments, yada, yada, yada. Of course, you do that. We felt, okay, if we get this in our hands, how can we help our clients? So we founded the Techem Research Institute on Sustainability in order to take some of the learnings, specifically in the E dimension, because that's where we have really all the data. We get the data from 12 million apartments in Europe, so we know exactly what's going on in real estate in that segment in terms of energy consumption. So we're turning this into an offer also for our clients. So I think the whole thing has to connect together and has to become a more digitized process, much more automated, in order to avoid a lot of just reporting stuff exercise.
So maybe, Christian, from your experience, because you just mentioned research as a component of where ideas and where innovation comes from, you as a serial entrepreneur, you've seen a lot of business models and a lot of idea generation processes. Which role does research play, and is that becoming bigger and bigger with the questions being more complex over time?
unquestionable, research plays a huge role in driving disruptive innovation. So that's why we as Sprint, we work very closely with the research organizations, universities and and other organizations like Leibniz. And I mean, the research has been there. I want to give you an example. One project that we support with Sprint is called weather tech. They ionize the air and they can enhance rain. It's not voodoo, it's real pure science. And it's not chemicals that you use to do cloud seeding or anything like that. It's really just putting electrons in the air. And it's very complicated to do that. And they've been doing it for 20 years. And just recently, we see that there's a lot of interest in this. And maybe it's because yesterday I saw Tagesthemen and they were saying this is the biggest scarcity of water since 50 years. Again, visibility into the data helps promote things that have been there for 20 years, and hopefully we can just together renaturalize whole semi-arid areas, even deserts. Just one example, I think, and without research you wouldn't get there, right?
Yeah, so maybe Rena, also as you are heavily working with software and data mining and things like that, so what role does this research and also people working with you that need a research background and that need a technical background, what role does it play and how has that changed when products and business models become more digital over time to solve the climate crisis and solve sustainable issues?
We collaborate with a lot of research institutions, and what we've seen is that there are multiple paper out there in those institutions who just never get used or haven't been used in the past. So what I would like to address here is that it's always very helpful to really look at the research center and proactively contact them, and then you have to find a way to bring it to life, right? To develop it. So I think for us, collaborating with those experts has been the key, a key success factor here, and we're looking forward to doing that more closely with governmental institutions, but NGOs and also Sprint, for example.
Great. Yep. So, Christian, do you want to add on that?
Maybe I want to add another angle, because we've been talking a lot about digitalization, research, but I think we have a much bigger problem when it comes to availability of parts for implementing solutions, when it comes to availability of labor of implementing solutions. So these are things that don't have anything to do necessarily primarily with digitization. Obviously, it can also help there, but I think that's also something for a sustainable tomorrow. We definitely need more installation capacity, and obviously availability of parts, and maybe even bring production lines here to Germany instead of bring them back to Germany. Thank you. A very important point. Right?
But that was a good bridge to the last topic I would love to cover on this panel for the last 6 to 7 minutes we have, because that's looking at kind of the policy demands and the policy side. So what, maybe Matthias, starting with you, because you nodded when he said we need to kind of draw the broader picture. What are your expectations, and what also needs to happen on the political level? What's your wish and your recommendations for politics to make this transition happen for you as a company?
Yeah, I'd like to take this from two angles. On the one side, I'm part of the Bitkom Presidial Committee, and we are just meeting up there, and we are discussing with politics the digitization journey of Germany. It's been a too long journey without too much progress, actually. But let me focus on the part of the question where you asked me about Techem. In order to digitize real estate, we of course need the data. And we currently have a piecemeal of regulation. We have it, old stuff is in silos. Electricity is in a silo, gas is in a silo, water measuring is still not liberated, so we need to have an integrated viewpoint. And my biggest criticism that I openly state is that we are even falling behind GPRD, so DSGVO, is big in the way of utilizing the data in an anonymous and in an industrial way in order to optimize the system. What do I mean? I'm collecting the data from every apartment of my clients. This is anonymized data. This is data that gives me no indication about the tenant as such. I'm only allowed to use that data for the purpose of the billing and the heat cost allocation. That is the latest regulation as of 1st of January. I'm not allowed to use that data, however, in total to optimize the boiler room and to take the energy consumption down. So we are living in piecemeal of regulation where we need a holistic look on how society is allowed to use that anonymized data for the purpose of decarbonization. And that's not happening. So it's these kind of little by little regulative barriers that are in the way to really optimize energy consumption in buildings. We are talking about big numbers here. What do you think? What is the average of an apartment in Germany? By the way, the average apartment size in Germany is 68 square meters. How many tons of carbon do we have as an emission per year? What do you think? Any numbers? Shout it out. 5? 5 tons? Others? 4? Okay. Pretty close, actually. Most people, by the way, do not know. It's about 2.2 to 2.5 tons from the energy side in order to heat, and it's probably another 1 to 1.5 tons coming from electricity. So 4, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less is good. Now, an average tree, 100-year-old oak, needs 80 years in order to decarbonize just one apartment in Germany which is being rented per year. We're talking huge numbers. That's the 40%. Now we have the gas crisis, and now we know that the gas storage is not improving well enough for the next winter. Nobody's daring to say what this will take us, all, you and me at home. 1 degree less heating in your apartment, sorry I have to say, this is not only about being comfortable, 1 degree less is 6 to 7% saving on the energy consumption. We are facing a gap of 20 to 30% of gas for the next winter coming. If not all of you and me and you and you and you, if we don't participate in getting a better grip on where we use our energy, we are toast. And our industry needs to help. Politics need to help with regulation, which is much easier in order to gain speed. We need to work much more together in order to reduce the energy consumption. You know, of course we do the reporting, and with all due respect, that's important. But what is really important in the next 18 months is that we get our grip on the energy consumption in this country in order not to have a real cold winter in many aspects.
Thanks a lot, Matthias, for this really passionate speech. Maybe, Rena, just for the last couple of minutes, from your perspective.
I don't want to freeze, you know? I don't want to freeze.
Which is a valid point. I guess we all do not want to do this. So maybe just from your perspective as a founder, what needs to change? What are you looking for when it comes to political decisions that are being made? What's needed from your perspective?
Absolutely. So it's not that we have 100 years, right? You're talking about 18 years in the energy sector, 18 months, sorry, right? And we have a very limited amount of time when it comes to the sustainability targets that the UN has set for each and every country. So we need to be very, very efficient. And I see all those regulations. We are helping, for example, to solve the supply chain law. We are helping with CO2 emissions. We are helping with the reporting regulations. They are coming more and more almost every week. And like the founders and CEOs of the companies that I talk to on a daily basis, they don't even know 20% of those. So the question is not, again, how to comply, how to check the boxes. The question is, where is the biggest impact, right? And I think, as you've done, you're a very good example of how you can really focus on the most important influence that you have in your company, right? You can help your clients, you can help solve a huge problem for Germany, for the world, and there are other companies who can do the same in other industry, in the software industry, for example. So I encourage everyone to be brave, not to get confused, because I get it. I'm also often confused by those regulations. Be brave and decide and just act, and if you fail, I mean, we all fail all the time, then just try a different approach.
Yeah, great, Christian. That's something where you can add failing and fail often and learn from things is what you do in the startup ecosystem. Not you as a person, but the ecosystem itself. So maybe
Me, of course, as a person, I failed many times. I think it's super important to fail and get the experience. And it's easy to say that, but in the minds of most people in Germany, failure is still seen as bad. And we as Sprint, we always say, hey, this is part of it. It's important to have groundbreaking technology, the sufficient funds, but the failure culture is super important, and execution power, of course. But if I could make a wish to the politicians, I would say it's two things. Support breakthrough innovation with sufficient cash, and sufficient is relative, but it's a lot of cash, and also support with contracts. So that's how it's done in the US, for example. Most innovations over there get supported by with cash and a big contract from NASA, from whomever. And that's something we can learn here. And to the first part about the cash, I think it's already in the making, and not everything we do in Sprint is a big success yet, and we fail, but we learn from it, and there's a new law being passed hopefully soon in Parliament called Sprint Freiheitsgesetz, which could give us, it's a liberty law for Sprint, which would enable us to help disruptive innovation even more. So that's my wish.
Thanks a lot for these last words. Our time is over. Thanks a lot for you in the audience for listening. I guess there was a lot of topics we now have to talk about, a lot of things we need to think about, a lot of wishes to politics and the policymakers. So it was a pleasure having you here on stage today. Thanks for joining Matthias quite spontaneously. Thanks, Rena, and thanks, Christian. It was great having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.